Ambassador Sarah Chun walked through the massive doors of the Galactic Council chambers. The ceiling stretched so high above her that she could barely see it. Around her, 12 different alien species sat in their designated seats, each one representing a civilization thousands of years older than humanity. Sarah felt small in this place. That was the point. The council chambers were built to make visitors feel tiny and powerless. Every alien race that entered here was supposed to understand their place in the galaxy. Today, humanity was about to learn theirs. The Vorthok representative stood first. Its body looked like living crystal, sharp edges catching the light as it moved. When it spoke, its voice echoed through the chamber like breaking glass. "Humans of Terra," the Vorthok said, "you have been called here to receive the Council's final decision. For 47 years, your species has expanded across the galaxy without permission. You have claimed planets that were not yours. You have built weapons that disturbed the peace we have maintained for 3,000 years." Sarah kept her face calm, but her heart was racing. She had expected this moment for months. Human intelligence had warned that the Council was growing tired of humanity's rapid expansion. In less than 50 years, humans had gone from a single planet to 47 colony worlds. Other species had taken centuries to achieve such growth. The Zilani representative spoke next. Its blue skin rippled like water as it stood. "Your military tactics are unusual," it said, choosing its words carefully. "You do not follow the accepted rules of galactic warfare. You attack without warning. You refuse to surrender when defeat is certain. This behavior threatens the stability our ancestors built." Sarah almost smiled at that. The aliens called human tactics unusual because humans actually fought to win. Every other species in the galaxy followed ancient rules that made war more like a dance than actual combat. They had formal challenges, agreed-upon battle sites, and complex surrender rituals. Humans simply attacked where the enemy was weakest and kept fighting until they won. The Thrakari delegate, a massive creature covered in thick armor plates, spoke in a voice like grinding stone. "Most disturbing is your species' refusal to accept defeat. In our recent conflicts, human forces have continued fighting even when completely surrounded. This persistence is not normal." Around the chamber, other alien heads nodded in agreement. Sarah realized they were all afraid. These ancient civilizations, with their vast fleets and orbital battle stations, were actually scared of humanity. They outnumbered human forces by hundreds to one, but something about the way humans fought terrified them. The Vorthok representative raised one crystalline arm for silence. "Therefore, the Galactic Council has reached a unanimous decision. Humanity must retreat to your original solar system within 6 standard months. All colony worlds must be abandoned. Your deep space fleet must be dissolved. You will remain in your home system and develop no further military capabilities." The chamber fell silent. Sarah could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. This was worse than she had expected. The Council wasn't just limiting human expansion. They were trying to cage humanity forever. "What if we refuse?" Sarah asked, her voice steady despite the fear in her chest. The Vorthok's crystal body flared brighter. "Then the Council will take corrective action. Our combined fleets will force your compliance. Your colonies will be destroyed. Your people will be relocated to Terra by force if necessary." Sarah looked around the chamber at the 12 alien faces staring down at her. Some looked sympathetic, others seemed bored, but most appeared determined. They had made their decision and expected humanity to submit like every other species before them. "I will carry your message to my government," Sarah said formally. "That is not necessary," the Vorthok replied. "We have already transmitted our demands to your leadership. This meeting was merely a courtesy to ensure you understand the seriousness of our decision." The Kovani delegate, whose species looked like tall, thin birds, spoke for the first time. Ambassador Chan, your species is young. In time, you will understand that the Council's authority exists for the good of all. The galaxy is vast enough for everyone, but only if each species knows its proper place. Sarah felt anger rising in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. And what exactly is humanity's proper place? In your home system, the Vortex said simply, where you cannot threaten the peace. The meeting was over. Sarah bowed slightly, not from respect, but because protocol demanded it. As she walked toward the massive doors, she could hear the alien delegates talking quietly among themselves. They seemed pleased with their decision, satisfied that they had handled the human problem before it could get worse. Sarah stepped outside the council chambers and immediately activated her communication device. The message was short and direct. Package delivered. They want us caged. 6 months compliance deadline. Unanimous decision. Recommend full implementation of Prometheus Protocol. Within hours, Sarah's message reached Earth, traveling through quantum communication networks that the aliens had built but never fully understood. Humanity had learned to use these networks better than their creators, sending encrypted messages that looked like routine data transfers. President Martinez read Sarah's report in his secure office deep beneath the Swiss mountains. Around the table sat the most powerful people in human space: military commanders, intelligence directors, and scientific advisors. They had been planning for this moment since humanity's first contact with alien civilization. So they want us to retreat, Admiral Torres said, her scarred face showing no emotion. Abandon 47 worlds and accept permanent imprisonment in our own system. That's correct, President Martinez replied. The question is, what do we do about it? General Kane leaned forward. Mr. President, we've been preparing for this scenario for decades. Project Prometheus is ready. Our fleets are positioned. Our intelligence networks are active. If we're going to act, now is the time. Dr. Vasquez, the head of Human Xenological Studies, spoke carefully. The Council made one crucial mistake. They assume we think like they do. They believe we'll calculate the odds, realize we're outnumbered, and submit to their authority. And will we? The President asked. Dr. Vasquez smiled. Mr. President, in all their thousands of years of civilization, these species have never encountered anything like humanity. They don't understand that being outnumbered just makes us fight harder. The room fell silent as President Martinez considered their options. Outside, Earth continued its ancient rotation, unaware that in this buried room, the future of human civilization was being decided. The choice was simple, but its consequences would echo across the galaxy. Submit to alien authority and accept permanent imprisonment, or launch the most audacious military campaign in galactic history. The President looked around the table at the faces of humanity's leaders. In their eyes, he saw the same determination that had carried humans from caves to stars in just a few thousand years. Gentlemen, ladies, he said quietly, it seems the Galactic Council has seriously misjudged who they're dealing with. The emergency session in the underground command center had been going for 18 hours straight. President Martinez rubbed his tired eyes as he looked around the table at humanity's top leaders. Coffee cups and empty food containers covered the polished surface, but nobody seemed to care about the mess. They had bigger problems to worry about. Admiral Rebecca Torres stood at the large display screen, showing the positions of human and alien fleets across the galaxy. Red dots marked Council forces' massive battle groups stationed around their core worlds. Blue dots showed human positions, smaller fleets scattered across the outer territories. The numbers don't lie, Admiral Torres said, her voice hoarse from hours of discussion. The Council has 500 capital ships. We have 43. They have over 2,000 escort vessels. We have 312. Their orbital defense platforms could probably destroy our entire fleet by themselves. General Marcus Kane, his face bearing scars from the Outer Rim conflicts, leaned back in his chair. Numbers never tell the whole story, Admiral. David didn't beat Goliath by counting rocks. This isn't a children's story, General. Dr. Elizabeth Warren, the Secretary of Colonial Affairs, said sharply. This is about the survival of 47 human colonies. 12 billion people live on those worlds. If we fight and lose, what happens to them? President Martinez looked at the holographic display floating above the table. Each blue dot represented thousands of human lives' families who had traveled across the void to build new homes among distant stars. The thought of abandoning them made his stomach twist. But the alternative might be even worse. Dr. Vasquez, the president said. Turning to the xenologist, you've studied these species for 20 years. If we comply with their demands, what happens next? Elena Vasquez looked tired, but her eyes were sharp. Mr. President, the Council operates on a hierarchy that's existed for millennia. Once they establish dominance over a species, they never give up control. If we retreat to Earth now, they'll never let us expand again. This isn't a temporary measure. It's permanent imprisonment. But if we fight, they might just destroy us completely, Secretary Warren argued. General Kane stood up slowly. Ma'am, with respect, they're planning to destroy us anyway. Maybe not physically, but they want to end human civilization as we know it. The only question is whether we go quietly or make them pay for it. Admiral Torres touched her command pad, and the display changed. Now it showed detailed schematics of human and alien ship designs. The differences were striking. Council vessels were huge, heavily armored, and loaded with weapons. Human ships looked tiny by comparison, but they were built differently. General Kane has a point, the Admiral said. Our ships aren't designed for the kind of warfare the Council expects. Look at their battle doctrine. The display showed formation patterns, massive alien fleets moving in predictable geometric shapes. They fight like it's a parade. Everything neat and orderly, following rules that are thousands of years old. President Martinez studied the patterns. And how do we fight? Like wolves, General Kane answered. Fast, smart, and vicious. We hit where they're weak, when they don't expect it. We don't line up and trade shots like gentlemen. We win. Dr. Vasquez activated her own files, showing psychological profiles of the Council species. The General is right about their tactics, but there's something else. These civilizations have been at peace with each other for over 3,000 years. They've forgotten what real war looks like. Their conflicts are formal affairs with agreed-upon rules and limited objectives. You're saying they're soft? Secretary Warren asked. I'm saying they're unprepared for total war, Dr. Vasquez replied. When we fought the Zelani over the Kepler colonies, their commanders kept trying to arrange formal surrender ceremonies, even while we were shooting at them. They literally could not understand why we wouldn't stop fighting and negotiate. General Kane walked to the display and pointed at several red dots. Project Prometheus has been in development for 15 years. We've identified every major Council installation, mapped their defense networks, and positioned our forces for maximum impact. We know their weaknesses. President Martinez felt a chill. Explain Prometheus. Total war, sir, Kane said simply. We don't fight to defend our colonies. We don't fight to negotiate a better deal. We fight to win completely. Every Council world, every major installation, every command center gets hit simultaneously. We make it impossible for them to coordinate a response. Admiral Torres brought up tactical simulations. Our ships carry fusion warheads specifically designed to destroy orbital platforms. We've been testing stealth technology that makes our vessels nearly invisible to Council sensors. Most importantly, We've developed AI targeting systems that can operate without human input. You're talking about genocide, Secretary Warren said, her voice horrified. No, ma'am, General Kane corrected. We're talking about destroying military targets and infrastructure. We're not planning to harm civilian populations, but we are planning to eliminate the Council's ability to threaten us. Dr. Vasquez pulled up another file. There's precedent for this kind of campaign. When the Thrikari first joined the Council 800 years ago, they tried to negotiate as equals. The Council destroyed their entire fleet and occupied their homeworld for 50 years. The Thrikari have been junior partners ever since. President Martinez stood and walked to the large window overlooking the command center. Below, hundreds of technicians and analysts worked at their stations, monitoring human colonies across the galaxy. These people had families on those distant worlds. Their children played under alien suns, went to schools on planets their great-grandparents never could have imagined. What are our chances? The president asked quietly. If we fight defensively, trying to protect our colonies, we lose, Admiral Torres said. The Council can concentrate their forces and overwhelm us one system at a time. But if we attack first, hitting all their major assets simultaneously. She paused. It's risky, but it's our only real chance. General Kane joined the president at the window. Sir, I've been fighting alien forces for 20 years. They're not invincible. They're just used to everyone being afraid of them. When someone actually fights back hard enough, they fold. President Martinez thought about Ambassador Chun's report. The aliens had seemed so confident, so certain that humanity would submit to their demands. They had ruled the galaxy for millennia, and every species had eventually bent the knee to their authority. How long would we have to prepare? The president asked. Prometheus can launch in 72 hours, Kane replied. All our strike forces are already in position. We've been moving ships for months, disguising them as routine patrol rotations. The president turned back to the room. Every face was watching him, waiting for the decision that would determine humanity's future. Submit and accept permanent imprisonment, or fight against impossible odds for the right to remain free. Secretary Warren spoke one last time. Mr. President, if we're wrong about this, if the aliens decide to exterminate us completely, billions of people will die. And if we're right, Dr. Vasquez countered, billions of people will live free. President Martinez looked at each person around the table. These were good people, smart people, who had devoted their lives to protecting human civilization. Whatever decision he made, he knew they would support it completely. General Kane, the president said finally, how certain are you that Prometheus will work? Kane met his eyes steadily. Sir, I'm certain we'll make them regret giving us an ultimatum. President Martinez nodded slowly. The decision was made. Admiral Rebecca Torres stood on the bridge of the UHS Defiance, watching the countdown timer tick toward 0. Around her, the bridge crew worked in focused silence, their fingers dancing across control panels as they made final preparations. Through the view screen, she could see the other ships in her battle group, 12 vessels that looked small and insignificant compared to the alien dreadnoughts they were about to face. 60 seconds to jump. Admiral, her navigation officer reported. Torres activated her command channel, connecting her to every human ship participating in Operation Prometheus. 300 vessels spread across 12 different star systems were about to launch the most audacious military campaign in galactic history. All ships. This is Admiral Torres, she said, her voice carrying across the void to human crews throughout the galaxy. In 1 minute, we make history. The Council thinks we'll run home with our tails between our legs. They're about to learn what happens when you threaten humanity. On the tactical display, Torres could see the positions of every human strike force. Captain Park's destroyers were preparing to hit the Zilani homeworld. Commander Wu's squadron was targeting the Council's primary communication hub. Across human space, her people were ready to prove that Earth's children wouldn't be caged. 30 seconds, Admiral. Torres thought about the alien ultimatum. 6 months to abandon everything humanity had built among the stars. 47 worlds given up without a fight. 12 billion people forced to abandon their homes because some ancient civilizations decided humans were too dangerous to be free. 10 seconds. The Admiral's hand hovered over the execution key. Once she pressed it, there would be no going back. Humanity would be at war with the most powerful alliance in galactic history. They would be outnumbered, outgunned, and facing enemies with thousands of years more experience. Execute, Prometheus. Torres pressed the key. Space around the Defiance twisted as the ship's jump drive engaged. Reality folded, and suddenly they were somewhere else entirely deep in Vorlich space, less than 1,000,000 kilometers from their primary orbital defense platform. Alarms immediately started screaming on alien ships that had never expected an enemy to appear in their most secure system. All weapons. Fire as you bear, Torres ordered. The human ships opened fire with everything they had. Fusion warheads shrieked toward alien installations, while particle beams sliced through surprised enemy vessels. The Vorthik had built their defenses to stop massive fleets approaching from predictable directions. They had never considered that someone might simply appear in the middle of their formation. Direct hit on their primary platform, her weapons officer reported. Secondary explosions detected. Their shields are down. Torres watched the massive alien structure, a city-sized weapons platform that had guarded Vorthik Prime for over 1,000 years, tear itself apart from internal explosions. Debris rained down toward the planet's atmosphere, burning bright streaks across the sky. Jump to secondary target, Torres commanded. The Defiance and her escort ships vanished again, leaving behind burning alien vessels and confused survivors trying to understand what had just happened. When they reappeared at the system's communication relay, they found it completely undefended. The alien commander had pulled all his ships back to protect the homeworld, leaving critical infrastructure exposed. Meanwhile, throughout Council space, similar attacks were taking place. Captain Park's destroyers had penetrated the Zilani defense network by exploiting gaps in their patrol routes, something the rigid alien command structure had never considered possible. Human ships didn't follow predictable paths or maintain formal formations. They moved like ghosts, appearing where they weren't expected and vanishing before effective resistance could be organized. Commander Lisa Wu was leading her squadron through the outer defenses of Corvani space when she received an unexpected message. The alien commander was trying to arrange a formal challenge, requesting that both sides withdraw to neutral ground, where they could fight according to established protocols. Sir, should we respond? Her communications officer asked. Wu almost laughed. Tell them we're busy. Her ship swept past the confused alien vessels and struck directly at the Council's primary communication nexus. The installation was massive, but poorly defended. The aliens had never imagined anyone would be bold enough to attack such a symbolically important target. The nexus contained quantum communication equipment that linked every Council world, allowing their central government to coordinate activities across thousands of light years. When Wu's fusion torpedoes tore through its core systems, the effect was immediate. Suddenly, Council commanders throughout the galaxy found themselves cut off from central command, forced to make decisions based on incomplete information. Back in the Vorthik system, Admiral Torres was discovering something interesting about alien psychology. The enemy ships were retreating to defend their homeworld rather than pursuing the human raiders. It was a defensive mindset that made perfect sense for a civilization that had never faced total war. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender signals from 3 enemy vessels," her communications officer reported. "Ignore them," Torres ordered. "We're not here to take prisoners." This was perhaps the most shocking aspect of human warfare from the alien perspective. Council species had elaborate surrender protocols because they assumed that defeated enemies would be treated according to galactic law. The concept of refusing surrender, of continuing to fight until the enemy was completely destroyed, was alien to their way of thinking. Torres watched her tactical display as reports came in from across the galaxy. Every human strike force was succeeding beyond their most optimistic projections. The aliens were reacting exactly as Dr. Vasquez had predicted, with confusion, defensive thinking, and attempts to restore traditional order to a situation that had moved far beyond traditional warfare. Strike Team 7 reports complete destruction of Thrakari defensive grid, her intelligence officer announced. Strike Team 3 has eliminated the primary shipyards at Corvani Beta. Strike Team 12 has successfully destroyed the Council's reserve ammunition depot. Torres felt a grim satisfaction as the reports continued. Each target destroyed meant the Council's ability to wage war was permanently reduced. Human forces weren't just winning battles. They were dismantling the military infrastructure that had maintained galactic order for thousands of years. "Admiral, we're detecting massive alien fleet movements," the tactical officer reported. "It looks like they're trying to concentrate their forces for a counterattack." Torres studied the enemy movements and smiled. The aliens were doing exactly what human planners had hoped they would do, massing their ships into large, vulnerable formations that could be detected from light years away. "Signal all strike teams," Torres ordered. "Phase 2 is authorized. Target enemy fleet concentrations." The human ships began their second wave of attacks, this time focusing on the alien fleets themselves rather than just installations. The Council's massive battle groups made tempting targets, especially since their commanders were still thinking in terms of formal fleet engagements rather than the guerrilla warfare humanity had perfected. As the first day of Operation Prometheus continued, it became clear that something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. The ancient order that had ruled the stars for millennia was burning, destroyed by a species that refused to accept its assigned place in the cosmic hierarchy. Admiral Torres looked out at the stars and thought about Ambassador Chun standing alone in the council chambers, facing 12 alien civilizations that expected humanity to submit to their authority. Those same aliens were now desperately trying to understand how their perfect order had collapsed in a single day. "Status report, all teams," Torres requested. The responses came back quickly. 6 council worlds under direct attack. Their communication networks destroyed. Their defensive installations in ruins. Their fleets scattered and confused. And this was just the beginning. Torres activated the ship-wide communication system. "Attention all crew. This is the Admiral. As of today, the galaxy has learned that humanity doesn't retreat. We advance. And we never, ever give up." The Council emergency session was chaos. High Chancellor Zephyr of the Vartheg stood at the center of the Great Chamber, his crystalline form flickering with stress patterns that hadn't been seen in over 1,000 years. Around him, alien representatives shouted over each other in a dozen different languages, their carefully maintained dignity shattered by the impossible reports flooding in from across council space. "Impossible!" screeched the Thrakari delegate, his armored plates rattling with agitation. "Our defense grid has protected the homeworld for 2 millennia. It cannot simply be gone," but it was gone. In 18 hours of human attacks, military installations that had stood since before Earth developed writing had been reduced to expanding clouds of debris. The humans weren't just winning battles. They were erasing the physical symbols of council power. High Chancellor Zephyr raised his arms for silence, but the chamber remained in uproar. For the first time in recorded history, the council was facing an enemy that didn't follow any recognized rules of warfare. The human Admiral Taurus refuses all communication, reported the Zilani representative, her blue skin pale with shock. Our fleet commanders attempted to arrange formal combat protocols, but the humans ignore all standard military courtesy. What do you mean ignore? Asked the Corvani delegate. They don't respond to surrender signals. They don't acknowledge challenges to single combat. They don't even pause between attacks. It's as if they believe war has no rules at all. Chancellor Zephyr finally managed to restore some order to the chamber. We must adapt to this new reality, he announced. The humans clearly don't understand proper warfare. We will teach them. But even as he spoke, new reports arrived that made the situation worse. Human forces had struck the sacred archives on Thrakari Prime, destroying thousand-year-old records of galactic law. They had eliminated the judicial fleet that maintained order in disputed territories. Most shocking of all, they had attacked the memorial station at Corvani, a site that commemorated the last Great War and was considered neutral ground by every civilized species. Commander, Lisa Wu was having the time of her life. Her squadron had spent the last day jumping from system to system, destroying everything the aliens needed to coordinate their defense. Communication relays, supply depots, command centers, all of it burning behind them as they moved deeper into Council space. Commander, we're receiving another formal challenge, her communications officer announced. The Zilani 7th Fleet wants to meet us at coordinates they've transmitted for honorable combat. Wu looked at the coordinates on her tactical display. The aliens wanted to fight in open space, away from any planets or installations, where both sides could maneuver freely without risking civilian casualties. It was the sort of clean, noble warfare that had characterized galactic conflicts for thousands of years. Send a response, Wu ordered. Tell them we'll be there. Her crew looked surprised. They had been ignoring alien attempts at formal combat since the operation began. But Commander, her tactical officer said, those coordinates put us right in the middle of their defensive formation. It's obviously a trap. Wu smiled. Of course it's a trap. But they're expecting us to spring it like gentlemen. Load fusion torpedoes. 12 hours later, the Zilani 7th Fleet waited in perfect formation at the agreed coordinates. Their ships were arranged in the traditional battle pattern, a beautiful geometric design that allowed each vessel to support its neighbors while maintaining clear lines of fire. It was the kind of formation that artists had painted and poets had celebrated for generations. Wu's squadron appeared exactly on schedule, but not where the aliens expected. Instead of arriving at the center of the formation like honorable opponents, the human ships materialized at the edge of the alien fleet and immediately launched. Their entire torpedo load, the Zilani. Commander didn't even have time to protest the violation of combat protocol before his flagship was blown apart. Within minutes, the entire 7th Fleet was destroyed. Their perfect formation turned into an expanding field of wreckage. Wu was already jumping to her next target before the alien emergency signals reached their high command. Similar scenes were playing out throughout Council space. Human commanders like Captain Park and Colonel Martinez were rewriting the rules of galactic warfare with every engagement. They didn't fight where the enemy wanted them to fight. They didn't respect sacred sites or neutral zones. They attacked supply lines, communication networks, and civilian infrastructure that had been considered off-limits for thousands of years. Most disturbing to the alien mindset was the discovery that humans took no prisoners during active combat operations. When Council ships surrendered, human forces either ignored the surrender signals or destroyed the vessels anyway. This wasn't cruelty, it was efficiency. Human commanders couldn't spare resources to guard captured aliens while continuing their attacks. The psychological effect on Council forces was devastating. Species that had spent millennia following elaborate rules of civilized warfare suddenly found themselves facing an enemy that seemed to recognize no limits whatsoever. Admiral Torres was studying intelligence reports in her ready room when her aide announced a priority message from Earth. President Martinez appeared on her screen, looking tired but determined. "Admiral, how are we doing?" "Better than projected, sir," Torres replied. "Council resistance is collapsing faster than we anticipated. Their command structure wasn't designed for this kind of warfare." "What about casualties?" "Minimal on our side. We've lost 8 ships total across all strike forces." "Council losses are..." Torres checked her tablet. "Significant. We estimate they've lost over 60% of their deep space fleet." President Martinez looked relieved. "Any sign they're ready to negotiate?" "Sir, they keep trying to arrange formal ceasefires and peace talks, but only if we return to civilized combat protocols first. They literally cannot comprehend fighting a war without rules." On the screen, the president rubbed his eyes. "And our supply situation?" "Excellent. Every ship is operating independently with full fuel and ammunition reserves. We plan for a 6-month campaign without resupply." Torres paused. "Mr. President, I don't think this will take 6 months." She was right. Reports continued flooding in from human strike forces across the galaxy. 3 more Council worlds had fallen under direct human control. The Kovani government had formally requested mediation through neutral parties, but there were no neutral parties left. Every minor species in the galaxy was watching to see whether the ancient Council would survive its encounter with humanity. The most significant development came from an unexpected source. The Owlery, a minor species that had served the Council for 800 years, formally declared neutrality and withdrew their forces from joint operations. Within hours, 2 other client species followed their example. Chancellor Zephyr received this news while standing in what remained of the Vortex Strategic Command Center. Human attacks had reduced the installation to a skeleton crew operating from emergency bunkers deep underground. The crystal walls were cracked from nearby explosions, and the lights flickered with each new impact. "How many ships do we still have operational?" he asked his military advisor. "Across all Council space?" "Perhaps 40% of our original strength, Chancellor. But they're scattered, cut off from Central Command, and operating without coordination." Zephyr stared at the tactical display showing human positions. The blue dots were everywhere now, no longer concentrated in the outer territories, but spread throughout the heart of Council space. In just 3 weeks, humanity had gone from being ordered to retreat to their home system to occupying the most secure regions of the galaxy. "What do they want?" he asked quietly. His advisor looked confused. "Sir, the humans. What are they trying to achieve? Territory? Resources? Tribute?" "Chancellor, we've attempted to open negotiations 17 times. They hadn't responded to any of our messages." Zephyr felt something he had never experienced before: genuine fear for the survival of his civilization. Every previous conflict in galactic history had been limited by mutual understanding of acceptable behavior. Both sides fought until one achieved their objectives, then negotiated a settlement that preserved the fundamental order of things. But the humans seemed to be fighting for unconditional victory. They showed no interest in negotiation, no concern for civilian populations, and no respect for the ancient traditions that had maintained galactic peace for millennia. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Galactic Council faced the possibility of complete military defeat. Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of the Council's former flagship, the massive dreadnought that had once symbolized alien supremacy across the galaxy. 6 weeks after the human ultimatum deadline had passed. She was accepting the unconditional surrender of the Galactic Council in the same chambers where Ambassador Chun had been ordered to retreat. High Chancellor Xaver of the Vorthok approached slowly, his crystalline form dim and flickering with defeat. Behind him walked the remaining council representatives, those whose governments still existed after humanity's total war campaign. Several seats in the chamber stood empty, representing species whose military forces had been so completely destroyed that they no longer functioned as coherent civilizations. Admiral Torres, Chancellor Zephyr said, his voice barely above a whisper, "The Galactic Council formally surrenders to human forces. We request terms for the cessation of hostilities." Torres looked at the alien leader who had seemed so confident when threatening humanity just weeks before. The crystalline being that had demanded human retreat now stood broken in his own council chambers, begging for mercy from the species he had tried to cage. "Chancellor," Torres replied, "there are no terms to discuss. Your surrender is unconditional. The Council's authority over galactic affairs is finished." Around the chamber, alien delegates shifted nervously. They were used to negotiated settlements, formal protocols that preserved dignity even in defeat. The concept of unconditional surrender of total victory that left the loser with no bargaining power was foreign to their experience. But surely, the Thrakari representative ventured, some arrangement can be made. The ancient laws of warfare require— "The ancient laws," Torres interrupted, "no longer apply. You tried to destroy human civilization. We responded by destroying yours instead. That's how war works when you fight a species that doesn't give up." The truth of humanity's campaign was staggering in its completeness. Operation Prometheus hadn't just defeated the Council's military forces. It had dismantled the entire structure of galactic governance. Human forces now controlled every major trade route, every significant communication hub, and most importantly, every world that had previously served as a council stronghold. President Martinez's voice filled the chamber as he addressed the assembled aliens via holographic projection from Earth. The old order demanded that humanity know its place in the galaxy, he said, his words echoing in the vast space. Now you know ours. The psychological impact of humanity's victory extended far beyond simple military defeat. Species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years were struggling to understand how their perfect order had collapsed so completely. The humans hadn't just won battles. They had proven that the fundamental assumptions underlying galactic civilization were wrong. Commander Wu, now serving as Taurus Chief of Staff, stepped forward with a data tablet. "The preliminary assessment is complete, Admiral. We control 87% of former Council space. Remaining alien forces are scattered and without central command. Most have stopped fighting altogether." Torres nodded and turned back to the alien delegates. "You have a choice," she announced. "You can accept human authority and participate in the new galactic order we're establishing, or you can continue to resist and be eliminated entirely." Chancellor Zephyr's form flickered brighter for a moment, a sign of stress or anger, but his voice remained carefully controlled. What will happen to our worlds? Our people? Your civilian populations will be protected, Torres assured him. "We're not interested in ruling over unwilling subjects. But your military forces will be disbanded permanently. Your worlds will be open to human colonization. And most importantly, you will never again threaten human expansion." The Golvani delegate, whose bird-like features showed obvious distress, spoke carefully. "Admiral, surely you understand that what you're proposing will fundamentally change galactic civilization. The Council has maintained order for 3 millennia. Torres almost smiled at that. "Your order demanded that an entire species accept permanent imprisonment. We've simply replaced it with a better system. Dr. Vasquez, who had traveled from Earth to witness this historic moment, stepped into the chamber carrying detailed plans for humanity's vision of galactic governance. The Reformed Council would include human representation, not as junior partners or probationary members, but as the dominant voice in galactic affairs. The new system will be based on merit and capability rather than age and tradition, Dr. Vasquez explained to the stunned aliens. Species that contribute to galactic prosperity will be rewarded. Those that threaten it will be removed. It was a complete reversal of the old order. For thousands of years, the galaxy had been ruled by ancient civilizations that claimed authority based on their age and established power. Younger species were expected to accept subordinate positions regardless of their capabilities or achievements. Humanity had shattered that system by proving that military victory mattered more than traditional authority. Admiral Torres activated a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. Blue markers indicated human-controlled territory, which now encompassed most of the former Council space. Red markers showed alien holdout systems' isolated pockets of resistance that would be dealt with over the coming months. This is your new reality, Torres told the assembled delegates. Human forces control every major system. Our fleets patrol every significant trade route. Our bases guard every strategic resource. The galaxy that ordered us to retreat now belongs to us. The scale of humanity's achievement was almost impossible to comprehend. In less than 2 months, a species that had been threatened with extinction had become the dominant power in galactic civilization. They had gone from facing ultimatums to dictating terms to their former enemies. Chancellor Zephyr looked around the chamber at his fellow council members, seeing defeat and resignation in every alien face. "How?" he asked quietly. "How did you achieve such complete victory so quickly?" Torres considered the question seriously. "You made one fundamental error, Chancellor. You assumed we thought like you do. You believed we would calculate odds, consider costs, and choose the rational path of surrender. And instead you threatened our freedom," Torres replied. "Humans don't respond well to threats. We respond by eliminating the threat entirely." President Martinez's hologram flickered as he prepared to deliver the final terms of the new galactic order. The reformed Galactic Council will convene in 6 months. Humanity will hold the position of first speaker. All major decisions regarding territorial disputes, military actions, and expansion rights will be subject to human approval. And if we refuse? The Thrakari delegate asked. Then you'll join the species that have already refused, Torres answered. Looking around the chamber, she noticed several empty seats that had been occupied at the beginning of the war. We gave everyone a choice. Some chose wisely. As the formal surrender ceremony concluded, Admiral Torres reflected on the journey that had brought humanity to this moment. Weeks ago, Ambassador Chun had stood alone in this chamber, facing 12 alien civilizations that expected her species to submit to their authority. Now, those same civilizations were begging for mercy from the species they had tried to destroy. The galaxy had wanted humanity to know its place. They had discovered that humanity's place was at the top of the galactic hierarchy, won through superior strategy, uncompromising determination, and the willingness to fight total war when threatened with extinction. Commander Wu approached Torres as the alien delegates filed out of the chamber in defeat. Admiral, what are your orders regarding the remaining alien resistance? Torres looked out through the chamber's great windows at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, human construction fleets were already beginning to build new bases in former Council territory. Human families would soon be making homes on worlds that had been forbidden to them just months before. Standard procedure, Commander, Torres replied. Give them one chance to surrender. If they refuse, destroy them completely. It was a simple philosophy that had carried humanity from a single world to galactic dominance in less than 50 years. When threatened, humans didn't retreat, they advanced. When challenged, they didn't negotiate, they won. The species that had ordered humanity to know its place had learned a harsh lesson about the children of Earth. Sometimes the best defense was an overwhelming offense. And sometimes the best way to ensure peace was to prove that you were too dangerous to threaten. Ambassador Chun, who had witnessed both the original ultimatum and this final victory, spoke the closing words that would be remembered throughout galactic history. You wanted humanity to know its place in the galaxy. Now you do.